We live in a world where we have to grow up. People in this business fall by the wayside because we forget that all of us ultimately answer to people.
The internet is buzzing after Stephen A. Smith hinted at the real reasons behind Molly Qerim's sudden departure from ESPN, ending nearly 20 years with the network. And the emerging details suggest the situation is far more layered than people initially assumed. Let's break it down. The sports media landscape was shaken on September 16, 2025, by one of the most unexpected exits in ESPN's history. After nearly 2 decades at the network and 10 years serving as the trusted moderator of First Take, Molly Qerim abruptly announced her resignation. The news left fans, co-workers, and even Stephen A. Smith caught completely off guard. What made this exit particularly surprising wasn't just the timing, it was how everything unfolded. Imagine this. On Monday, September 15th, Molly was on air as usual, guiding debates with the steady professionalism that made her a staple of ESPN's flagship show. But by the next morning, she had disappeared. Not just taking a break or stepping back temporarily, but entirely gone from the organization she had been with for 19 years. Initial reports from Sports Business Journal suggested she was planning to leave at the end of the year. But what followed turned an already surprising situation into something even more puzzling. Instead of staying on through the rest of the year, Molly posted an Instagram statement that changed the narrative entirely.
Molly Qerim exiting ESPN, exiting First Take, quite abruptly, one might say. Last night, Austin Karp of Sports Business Journal reported that Molly Qerim was exiting at the end of the year, but it turns out she is exiting effective immediately.
Her Instagram post began with the telling words, "The news came out earlier than I intended. This immediately signaled that something unusual had taken place behind the scenes. It wasn't the kind of well-planned farewell networks typically give their long-serving personalities. This felt entirely different, an abrupt, decisive resignation that left many trying to make sense of the situation. The reaction was swift and noticeable. When First Take aired on Tuesday morning without its familiar moderator, viewers were greeted with an unexpected sight: Stephen A. Smith opening the show alone. He appeared visibly moved, delivering what could best be described as a sincere yet somewhat vague goodbye.
Normally, our friend Molly Qerim would greet you. However, Molly announced last night she will be departing from ESPN. She's hosted First Take for 10 years and elevated the show with her grace, her expertise, and incomparable kindness. She's been an enormous part of our success for a decade. Not only did she keep me and many others in line, she did it with dignity, and class, and kindness, to say the least.
He continued by saying she would be missed and expressed his best wishes for her future endeavors.
We'll miss her and wish her every blessing on her future. I personally am grateful to her for her friendship, and I will miss spending every weekday morning with her right by my side.
At first glance, this came across as a genuine message from a friend and colleague. But if you listen closely, certain points stand out. Take note of how Stephen A. specifically mentioned that she announced it last night, implying he had no advance notice. This wasn't a departure that had been coordinated over time, but the most revealing moment came later that same day during his SiriusXM podcast, The Stephen A. Smith Show. That's when he made a series of comments that sparked widespread speculation about what may have really happened behind the scenes at ESPN.
Last night, she abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement. Molly is a friend. Molly is a co-worker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me.
That's when Stephen A. dropped the real revelation.
And a lot of times, some of these things happen, and it's just uncomfortable to see. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business. But it's not as if I know all the details. There was a contract negotiation that was going on.
He acknowledged that there was more to the story than what had been shared publicly, but made it clear it wasn't his place to go into further detail.
But we all make decisions that we deem to be in our best interest, for whatever reason. And that story is for her to tell. Do I have an idea? Of course I do. Am I going to share it with you? No. Because again, that's her story to tell.
This is where things became even more intriguing. Stephen A. was clearly hinting that he had inside knowledge, but was choosing to stay quiet. That kind of statement naturally sparked widespread speculation among fans. However, one of the most significant points in his response was the emphasis he placed on how sudden the departure was. This wasn't part of a planned handoff or a carefully managed exit. Even ESPN's president of content, Burke Magnus, later confirmed that the timing came as a surprise. He stated, "The one thing that was unexpected was the timing of all this. She put out a statement because there was a report on it. So it kind of got out of our respective controls once that happened." To fully grasp how impactful this departure is, it's important to understand what Molly Qerim contributed to First Take and to ESPN overall. She joined the network in 2006, originally contributing to digital and mobile content, and later became the full-time moderator of First Take in 2015. In that role, she was instrumental in helping the show grow its influence, turning it into one of ESPN's most prominent debate platforms. The results speak for themselves. First Take became the network's highest-rated studio show, regularly pulling in over 500,000 viewers per episode. It was even named one of Sports Business Journal's top 25 current sports studio shows in 2024. In 2023, First Take experienced its most successful year to date, maintaining strong traditional TV ratings while also surging online, with 250 million views on YouTube. But Molly Qerim's role extended well beyond simply moderating discussions. She consistently provided a calm, professional presence that balanced Stephen A. Smith's high-energy delivery, bringing structure, accuracy, inclusiveness, and composure to the show. Both critics and viewers credited her with advancing female representation in a space typically dominated by men. Her career trajectory at ESPN was impressive. Beginning in 2006 as a digital contributor, she quickly showcased her range by covering major sports events from college football to the NFL. She earned an Emmy in 2008 for her work on fantasy football coverage. Molly's strength in managing live television, conducting insightful interviews, and moderating tense debates made her a valuable figure within the network. Her on-screen chemistry with Stephen A. Smith became well known in the sports media world. Over a decade, they developed a rhythm that complemented each other. His intense delivery counterbalanced by her thoughtful, composed style. She had the ability to challenge his takes, steer the conversation when necessary, and introduce lighthearted moments that kept the energy engaging without letting it spiral out of control. What made her departure especially surprising was the complete absence of public indications. There were no reports of conflict, no signs of dissatisfaction, and no noticeable decrease in her airtime. In fact, First Take had been performing strongly, with viewership consistently growing year over year. Then, without warning, she was gone, leaving only a few ambiguous social media posts and Stephen A. Smith's carefully crafted, yet ultimately unclear, remarks about her exit. The immediate fallout spoke volumes. ESPN quickly confirmed that Molly Qerim would not return to future episodes, fast-tracking her exit from what had originally been described as a year-end departure to an immediate one. The timing of it all raised serious questions about ESPN's internal structure. First Take was thriving, delivering strong ratings and maintaining cultural relevance. Yet, without any formal announcement or gradual transition, the network abruptly lost one of its most essential figures. For a company known for carefully managing talent shifts, this marked a clear deviation from its usual playbook. One thing became evident. This wasn't a routine contract disagreement or a mutual, well-coordinated departure. Something had clearly broken down during negotiations. Something serious enough for a respected professional like Molly Qerim to walk away immediately, rather than finish out her contract. While Molly's sudden exit surprised fans, what was unfolding behind the scenes was even more significant. Because this wasn't just about leaving a television show, it was about financial terms, authority, and a negotiation process that completely unraveled. Now that we've covered just how abrupt and unexpected this exit was, let's look at what industry insiders are suggesting happened off camera. This situation extended far beyond salary concerns, though compensation was certainly a factor. At the heart of it were deeper issues involving power structures, workplace treatment, and negotiations that went sideways. To truly understand how tensions reached this level, we have to examine the broader financial environment at ESPN. That includes Stephen A. Smith's major contract extension in 2024, reportedly signed a 5-year deal valued at over $100 million, making him one of the highest-paid figures in sports media. In contrast, sources indicate that Molly Qerim was earning approximately $500,000 per year. To put that into perspective, that's about a 40-to-1 salary difference between the two co-hosts of ESPN's flagship morning show. This wasn't just a pay gap, it was a massive financial divide. And according to multiple insiders, this disparity became a central issue during Molly's contract discussions. But here's where things become more complex, and where former ESPN analyst Marcellus Wiley's perspective adds key context. Wiley, who worked at ESPN from 2007 to 2018 and had a working relationship with Molly during her rise at the network, has been one of the most outspoken voices analyzing the situation.
Molly was going through a contract negotiation, obviously, and that was not going well, obviously, because Molly wasn't getting what she wanted. What did Molly want? Molly wanted to do other things at the network, which included hosting her own show. Let me land on my feet within the network, still be at the worldwide leader, and do my thing. Now, that wasn't happening.
According to Wiley, Molly wasn't just pushing for a raise to stay on First Take, she was advocating for career advancement. She reportedly wanted her own platform and broader opportunities that would reflect her decade-long contributions and her proven ability to navigate live, high-stakes broadcasts. However, ESPN allegedly turned down nearly all of her requests. This rejection is even more notable when you consider her track record. Molly had moderated high-profile debates during some of the most controversial and pivotal moments in sports over the past 10 years, from LeBron James's team changes to the NFL's handling of national anthem protests. Her ability to guide intense discussions while maintaining structure made her a critical part of the show's success. But Wiley digs even deeper, suggesting that Stephen A. Smith's significant influence at ESPN may have played a key role in how these negotiations were handled.
He signs off on you. When he signs for you, you get what you want. But guess what? There's a flip to it as well. When he doesn't sign off on you, when he doesn't sign for you, you don't get what you want.
According to this theory, Stephen A. Smith operates as an informal power broker at ESPN, someone whose support, or lack thereof, can significantly influence others' career paths. And based on Marcellus Wiley's analysis, Smith chose not to use that influence to support Molly Qerim's requests during negotiations. Let's examine the evidence backing this idea. Multiple reports suggest that Smith's contract extension granted him considerable input into show-related decisions, including casting. There are also documented instances where Smith's preferences influenced hiring and firing decisions for First Take-related roles. The kind of influence Wiley describes isn't unusual in the media world. When a figure becomes as essential to a network as Smith is to ESPN, they often acquire unofficial power that goes well beyond their job title. Given Smith's prominent contract and central role in ESPN's programming, it makes sense that he would hold sway over many internal decisions. Based on this view, Smith has helped advance the careers of certain individuals at ESPN, but Molly Qerim, it appears, wasn't among them. This pattern of selective backing raises important questions about what standards or relationships shape his choices. The timing of events also supports the notion that something more complicated was at play behind the scenes. ESPN executive Burke Magnus previously stated that both sides had agreed Molly would gradually step away from First Take by year's end to pursue other roles within the company. However, something clearly shifted between that original agreement and her sudden, unplanned departure. According to several sources, the intention was for Molly to remain at ESPN while transitioning out of daily hosting duties. This new role would have allowed Molly Qerim to broaden her responsibilities, potentially hosting her own shows and taking on larger assignments across ESPN's programming lineup. For someone with her experience and skill set, such career growth seemed not only reasonable but well-deserved. However, at some point during the final round of negotiations, that plan unraveled entirely. Instead of a smooth transition into new opportunities, Molly was reportedly presented with a take-it-or-leave-it scenario, one that ultimately led to her complete departure. That brings us to the key question: why would a planned shift suddenly turn into an immediate exit? What happened during those last conversations that led her to walk away before completing her current contract? According to several industry sources, the issue centers on a breakdown in trust and respect, tensions that had been building for quite some time. Outlets citing insider accounts suggest that Molly felt overlooked, especially after years of contributing to First Takes, success in pushing for better female representation in a male-dominated industry. The frustration becomes even more understandable when you examine the broader compensation trends at ESPN. Comparisons were drawn to other on-air personalities like Mina Kimes, who, according to reports, earned significantly more despite not holding as prominent a role on a daily, high-visibility program. That comparison points to what many consider a deeper issue in how ESPN assesses the value of its talent. Molly, as co-host of the network's flagship morning show, was reportedly earning less than colleagues with smaller roles on less visible shows. When you're the person keeping the company's top-rated studio program on track every day and still find yourself paid less than others with lighter workloads, it naturally leads to dissatisfaction. And ultimately, decisions like the one Molly made, the situation becomes even more complicated when placed within the broader context of ESPN's financial pressures. The network has faced ongoing challenges due to cord-cutting trends and, in response, has implemented several cost-cutting measures, including multiple rounds of layoffs. Within that environment, ESPN may have viewed Molly Qerim's position as replaceable, even if her unique skills and on-screen chemistry with Stephen A. Smith were not. However, the cost-cutting rationale only explains so much, especially when you consider that the network was simultaneously awarding major contracts to other on-air talent. If ESPN could justify paying Stephen A. Smith over $20 million per year, it becomes harder to defend why Molly's more modest requests couldn't be accommodated. The imbalance in how these two contract negotiations played out further highlights the underlying power dynamics. Stephen A. Smith's extension was reportedly finalized without issue and resulted in a substantial raise. In contrast, Molly's negotiations collapsed over significantly smaller figures and reasonable requests for expanded opportunities. That contrast suggests a clear hierarchy in ESPN's internal priorities, securing Stephen A.'s satisfaction at any cost, while treating other contributors as more easily replaceable. For someone who had invested 10 years into helping First Take thrive, this disparity would likely feel both professionally disheartening and personally disrespectful. The concerns go beyond compensation. If Marcellus Wiley's claims about Smith's behind-the-scenes influence are accurate, they point to a deeper issue, one where advancement at ESPN may hinge more on personal alliances than performance or merit. Such a structure risks creating a workplace environment where talented individuals see their growth blocked, not due to lack of ability, but simply because they lack access to key decision-makers. And this is where the underlying concerns intensify. Beyond the financial negotiations and talent management issues, insiders suggest a deeper cultural problem, marked by personal tension, gender dynamics, and a long-standing workplace atmosphere at ESPN that some have described as toxic. As we dig deeper into this story, the most striking insights come from examining the specific power dynamics at play and the details of how these contract negotiations actually unfolded. The emerging picture suggests this wasn't simply about money or career opportunities. At its core, it was about respect and how toxic culture can develop when a single individual holds excessive influence within an organization. Let's start with the most serious allegations shared by industry insiders. Former ESPN analyst Marcellus Wiley has been especially outspoken about what he describes as a hidden conflict between Molly Qerim and Stephen A. Smith. His observations reveal a workplace dynamic far more strained than the public ever realized.
One of the worst kept secrets in the business is that they have a good relationship. They don't, right? They kind of tired on each other, etc. Not gonna go into all the messy details, but the point is they weren't cool with each other to the point someone you work with for 10 years, you don't even mention them when you're gone.
This perspective changes how we understand the First Take relationship entirely. For years, audiences saw what seemed like genuine camaraderie and mutual respect between the hosts. According to Wiley, much of that was performative, a professional facade covering growing tensions behind the scenes. The implications are significant. Consider the countless hours these two spent together over a decade. Daily broadcasts, special events, promotional appearances, and production meetings. They were effectively work partners for 10 years. To learn that much of this, relationship may have been maintained solely for professional purposes points to a level of dysfunction that exceeds ordinary personality conflicts. Even More striking are Wiley's claims about ESPN's broader culture, particularly in terms of how female talent is treated relative to male colleagues. He highlights what he sees as a systemic undervaluing of women's contributions to the network's success, raising questions about equity and workplace respect.
Point is, she's seeing not only people getting paid, and none of them really on the #1 show. Think about it, Malika's show, always struggling in terms of who's going to be on there. Oh, the cast is not it. Oh, they haven't got their traction yet, but she getting paid. Mina Kimes, a lot of people criticizing her. At the same time, she getting paid. And then you, Molly, I'm #2 on the #1 show we got, and I can't get none.
This situation paints a picture of Molly Qerim observing less prominent female colleagues receiving higher pay and better opportunities, while she, despite her central role on ESPN's most successful studio program, was undervalued and overlooked. The gender dynamics are hard to ignore. It appears the network was willing to compensate women well for certain roles, but not for a high-profile daily hosting position like the one Molly held. The psychological impact of this scenario would have been significant. Molly faced not only financial undervaluation, but also the frustration of seeing other women gain recognition and opportunities that she was denied. This likely sent a clear signal about how ESPN perceived her contributions and long-term potential. The situation becomes even more revealing when examining the details of ESPN's final contract offer. While exact numbers haven't been publicly confirmed, multiple sources suggest the offer fell far short of what Molly requested, especially when compared to contracts awarded to other network talent. The lowball offer is particularly striking given Molly's accomplishments. She had guided First Take through some of its most successful periods, helping to cement its status as ESPN's flagship studio show. Her skill in moderating heated debates while keeping the program engaging and informative made her a unique asset, one that would be difficult to replace. Perhaps the most telling aspect of the story is how Stephen A. Smith responded afterward. His cryptic statements, reluctance to provide details, and later podcast discussions about leverage and negotiation strategies have been widely interpreted as attempts to shape the narrative and shift responsibility. The timing of Smith's commentary on business leverage is especially notable. Just days after Molly's departure, he delivered what many perceived as a subtle lecture on understanding one's place within the industry hierarchy and not overestimating personal leverage.
I'm not talking about Molly here, but I'm watching, and I've been watching over the last several years, people in this business fall by the wayside because we forget that all of us ultimately answer to people. We don't get to define our own value. We don't get to define our own worth.
While Stephen A. Smith maintained that his remarks weren't directed at Molly Qerim specifically, the timing and tone of his comments led many observers to interpret them as a subtle message about the consequences of challenging the established power structure at ESPN. The underlying implication appeared to be, know your position, don't overstep, and remember who holds the influence. This type of indirect messaging can be particularly impactful. It allows Smith to communicate a pointed warning while retaining plausible deniability. He can claim he was speaking broadly about the industry, even as most understand he was referencing Molly's situation. Looking ahead, speculation about Molly's next steps is already circulating. Reports indicate she may have received a substantial offer from Fox Sports, potentially valued at around $2 million per year. This would not only represent a significant increase over her ESPN salary, but also validate her market value. The Fox Sports rumors are noteworthy because they suggest other networks recognize Molly's talent and influence, even if ESPN did not. A move to Fox could also challenge ESPN's dominance in sports media, potentially creating a direct competitor for First Take and impacting its viewership and cultural relevance. For ESPN, the immediate challenge is finding a replacement who can match the chemistry, professionalism, and credibility that Molly brought to the show. The network has announced a 30 to 45-day audition period for potential hosts, but insiders remain skeptical that anyone can easily fill the gap she leaves behind. The replacement process will also reveal ESPN's priorities. Will they choose someone willing to offer a fresh perspective and challenge Smith when necessary? Or select a host who will defer to his authority and maintain the status quo? Only time will tell. If you found this breakdown good, make sure to like this video, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more in-depth sports media updates.